Welcome to this week's episode. My name is Jane, and today we'll be looking through a co-regulation lens, looking at bedtime battles, because this is something that a lot of people request help or assistance with, dealing with the nighttime routines and the fact that your child is actually not winding down towards nighttime, they're actually winding up. So we'll cover those topics today, but just remember that meltdowns are completely normal and they don't happen because your child is naughty. They're happening because they're overstimulated, overwhelmed, and it's a release for them. And it's actually something really positive for them to be able to release all that pent up energy or anger or whatever feeling or emotion that they're holding on to. Okay, so let's get straight into bedtime. Meltdowns, tantrums, kids being very defiant. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do that. That is completely normal. And just remember, it has nothing to do with you as a parent. So your child's nervous system is completely stretched, it's overwhelmed, it's exhausted and dysregulated, and they're looking for safety. Now know that you also might be exhausted and tired and running on empty because you've also gone through your day and whatever that entails. So end of day nervous system fatigue is very real, and not only is it affecting you, it's also affecting your child, and that's why they're dysregulated. So normally there is less logic going on and more reactivity. So little things can absolutely trigger them because they're losing access to their regulation skills. So as the day has progressed, they get less and less access to that regulation. And then by the end of the day, and when it becomes bedtime, there's really not much left for them to be able to access or be able to give in that sense of regulation. So know that when their capacity drops, that their behaviour might escalate, so to speak. And that can be exactly the same for adults, for the parents too. So most bedtime resistance isn't actually about defiance or about control. It's really about what your child is experiencing in those moments. So it might be a feeling of separation from you. It might be they're absolutely exhausted and fatigue is creeping in. The nervous system is really struggling to downgrade, so to speak. So it's struggling from going in that on switch to going to that off switch and settling in. And so sleep requires safety, your child to feel safe before it actually requires structure. So transitions from something very stimulating, an activity they might be doing, to going to that really still place can actually take time to integrate. And that's why we might be seeing defiant behaviour, or they might be doing delaying tactics, like, oh, just before this, could we read one more book, or could we quickly, I need another glass of water, or whatever it might be. But that's a delaying tactic for their nervous systems to still settle and for them to really feel safe. So there's a big fear of separation when children go to sleep because they want to be near you, and some parents I know co-sleep, and for that then that really mitigates the sense of separation. But for those that don't, then their child is either by themselves in their bedrooms, and there is that fear of not having you about or your presence, because that's what really helps regulate them. So you could try sitting on their beds at night until they fall asleep, or just holding their hands, whatever it might be, just to help them feel safe and they're not having that feeling of separation, that you're not going to be there around them. Don't forget that their nervous systems are also very tired. They're exhausted, they've had big days. So having you there is also helping them co-regulate as well. You're helping them to settle within themselves. And children also need predictability, as we've discussed. So if this bedtime routine can be the same and it's integrated every single night, well, you're going to find that there's going to be less meltdowns, less tantrums, because they know what's expected of them and they know what's coming. They might still try their delaying tactics, or they might still have the occasional big outburst because whatever they've experienced through that day, they might be holding on to. But that's actually a positive thing, and it's healthy for them to have that outburst and that release with their safe person, which is you being around them and you being able to support them through that transition, and then allowing them to, from that dysregulated state, to become into a nice regulated state with your presence and you being there, and using those mirror neurons for them to connect with you and your regulated state. So all those sudden big feelings that they might be experiencing, they're going to minimalize over time as you're keeping to a routine. They know their predictability, they know what's expected of them, and they're going to start to really feel safe with their bedtimes, safe with switching from being on to down here, just allowing that stillness, allowing that calmness. And in one of my future videos, I am going to go through some really good breathing techniques that you can also integrate into your bedtime routine, which really helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is known as that rest and digest state, to really calm your child down and help ground them and help them slip into that nice relaxed state just prior to going to bed. So at bedtime, your child's regulation language is actually really important here because they're more sensitive to what feels safe for them. So let's just touch on them briefly. With touch and comfort, they might want cuddles, they might want to hold your hand, they might just want you to pat their back for a little while, just prior to going to sleep or just in that transition phase, even throughout the bedtime routine. For routine and predictability, they need structure. They need to have the same order, the same rhythm every single night. That's what they thrive on, and they know what's coming next. For presence and proximity, you need to be around them. So you're not rushing them, you're just being there for them, and you're being in that space. You're offering your co-regulation with them at all times. For words and understanding, they need to discuss, they need language, they need really reassurance of what's going on. It's okay, now we'll be doing this. They don't really need a lot of logic behind it. They just need to know what's happening and perhaps talk about it or allow them to talk about it with you. And for movement and release, sometimes they just might need to shake it out. We actually, with our kids, sometimes they're really worked up before bed. They're lying in bed and I say, okay, let's just get up and shake it all out. And that's what they'll do. They'll jump out of bed and they'll move around, release all that energy, and then lie down and do a little bit more breathing. And I find that really helps every single time. They're just having an outlet to release. And this isn't necessarily both of my children's primary regulation language, but sometimes it can be different on different occasions, and they need different outlets or whatever it might be, whatever regulation language they're feeling at that moment. So normally it's not about doing all of them in one night. It's just tuning into what your child's needs, which is primarily the primary or the secondary regulation language. But if you are noticing there's a lot of energy, then get them to move, get them to jump up and down, to do star jumps, to run on the spot, whatever it might be, just to help release that pent up energy before they go to bed so they can really settle within their body.